Hello everybody, welcome back to the show. I hope everyone's doing really well, and as always a massive warm welcome to anyone that might be listening to Maverick Mind for the very first time. So great to connect with you. This episode is quite a spontaneous one. I've just felt really called to speak to something based on a couple of things. One, something that's really playing out in the media at the moment. And two, that kind of sparked this quote that has kind of become a bit of a mantra for me over the years. And that quote is, sometimes before you go 3 steps forward, you have to go 3 layers deeper. I'm going to say that one more time. Sometimes before you go 3 steps forward, you have to go 3 steps deeper. This episode is really for the part of you that has felt like you needed someone else to choose you on your creative path, to co-sign your brilliance, to kind of like anoint you with the keys to the kingdom, or kind of somehow make it all happen for you, to open a door that you can't seem to break through on your own. This is a really common subconscious or conscious pattern for creators, and it's one that we get really stuck in, and breaking out of this is honestly the key to so much creative fulfillment, personal power, and becoming the magnet to the success of whatever that looks like that you really desire. Because here's the truth: you are the magnet, not the gallery, not the record label, not the casting director, not the whoever in power that you've been kind of orbiting around, hoping that one day they'll notice a little bit of your light. When you continuously outsource your power to people that you think hold the keys to your future, you shrink the very voice that would have opened that door effortlessly anyway. Let me say that part again too. When you continuously outsource your power to people who you think hold the keys to your big, bright future, you shrink the very voice that would have opened that door effortlessly anyway. I feel really inspired and called to share this because of something that's happening out in the media in the moment. Right now, there's quite a high-profile case involving a powerful music mogul, somebody who built their empire by positioning themselves as kind of like the gateway. Somebody who musicians, but also just creatives in general, felt like they had to say yes to in order to be seen, in order to make it. And that came at a cost, quite a dark one for some. And right now, as I'm recording this isn't playing out behind closed doors. It's playing out in public and in real time. And those listening, though I'm not going to speak to exactly what the case is about because it's very deep and dark, but those listening right now will know exactly what I'm talking about. And although rarely is it quite as extreme as in this case, this happens a lot within the creative industries, that we put a lot of our control and passion, or power I should say, into the hands of somebody who we think might open doors for us. That's the shadow of influence. It's sometimes built on fear rather than integrity. And that's why I really want to talk about it now. Not in whispers, but hopefully in clarity. The truth is, often we're kind of painted this picture that at some point, if you keep putting yourself out there, or at some point you'll meet somebody who'll just make it all happen for you. And sometimes, no matter your creative path, we find ourselves kind of in a position where we are circulating around somebody or a group of people that maybe are farther along the path than us. And I want to stress at the beginning, proximity is sometimes power. Sometimes being around people that really expand your idea of what's possible can really energize you forward. The trick is not to put all of your power in their hands. Being around powerful people or people of influence, people of outwardly perceived success feels seductive sometimes. When someone like quote unquote important notices your work, when you're suddenly in the room with people who you once admired from afar, it can feel like confirmation. Like maybe now you're valid. Like maybe now it's all working. Maybe I'm close. It's like something lights up in your nervous system. And your nervous system says, maybe this is it. Maybe I'm finally safe. Maybe I'm getting closer. Here's the thing. As I said a minute ago, proximity is power when that proximity is to the right people and the right expanders. But proximity is not progress. Being close to someone influential doesn't mean that you're aligned. It doesn't mean necessarily that they respect you, unfortunately, and it doesn't mean that you're building something sustainable. It means you're near it, but not necessarily of it. And if you're not careful, that magnetism and of that closeness can override your boundaries, your discernment, and your voice, which is what we're seeing a lot in this situation in the media at the moment. A lot of people surrounded themselves with this person because they thought that knowing him or being close to him would get them somewhere further in their career. And it ended up in quite dark ways or in a real dilution of their voice. This is how the cycle begins. And I'm not saying it's always going to be as dark as this. Let's hope that it's not. But sometimes it plays out a little bit more subtly. You shift just a little bit to stay in the room. You silence yourself just a little bit to stay liked. You start building someone else's vision with your own creative force. And then one day, you won't recognize your work anymore. This is a really, really easy trap to fall into. Because I think a lot of the time in like movies, in stories, in even some other people's success stories, we're taught that someone else has the access, reach or recognition, and they must know better than us because they have all of that. Or that their approval is worth compromising yourself for. That they are somehow the missing piece to this puzzle. But here's what we forget. Nobody else holds our talent. Nobody else holds our vision. Nobody else holds the key to your purpose. And nobody else is meant to make your career happen. When you hand over your power to being chosen repeatedly by somebody else, you're not just waiting. You're abandoning yourself. And that kind of continuous outsourcing of your power to somebody else on a low level or on a higher one is a real driver of anxiety as creatives. So here is a big shift that we need to make. And I'm going to preface this shift by telling you sometimes it's a little bit confronting. But I really want you to hear these words and to listen anyway. The shift that we have to make as a creator on this path is to realize that nobody's coming to save you. And that's kind of your superpower, because you don't need saving. You already have the secret sauce. You just need to magnetize, right? I also want you to make this shift as well, because it's coming from a lot of personal experience, that success itself is also not going to save you. Often we think that once we have achieved the goal, everything is going to be perfectly fine. That as soon as you have reached the top of your career, that all of a sudden everything's going to fall into place. That you're going to magically be a different person. That all your problems are going to have disappeared. That, you know, as soon as I'm a millionaire, everything is going to be fine. Or as soon as I have sold the painting, I'm going to be fine. When actually that mentality, while it gets you somewhere, I have witnessed again and again over my career, working with so many different creatives in different capacities from loads of different walks of life, even some with their names in the big, shiny, bright lights, some of the really successful people in our creative industries, some deeply fulfilled and some devastatingly unfulfilled. And the shift And the difference between those two people is the first, the one that is fulfilled, holds their power. The other one continuously performs for someone else's power. Because when you stop performing for someone else's power or stop outsourcing your control or your power, you start standing on your own. And you become like the vessel that magnetizes everything. Your message gets so much louder. Your clarity so much sharper. And what once felt really out of reach starts moving towards you. Not because somebody let you in, but because you went deeper. You anchored into your talent. You anchored into your truth. And you kind of dug into layers of yourself that you can express outwardly that other people cannot not listen to. This is where the big shift happens. And this is where the rise starts to begin. Because as I said, when you're in that space of really expressing you, rather than the version of you that you think will get you somewhere, or the version of you that you think will impress this person or this circle of people, or the version of you that you think everybody else wants to see, when you start really going deep within yourself and anchoring yourself into your truth in a radical amount of self-trust, people can't not take notice. And also people cannot not respect that. So I want to come back to where we started, that quote that I began with. And that quote was, sometimes in order to move 3 steps forward, you have to go 3 layers deeper. Forward is the outcome, the audience, the visibility, the success, whatever that is. I'm saying that in air quotes because it's whatever your version of success is. But depth is the foundation. Depth is the nervous system safety. Depth is the self-trust, the anchored clarity that cannot be manipulated. You don't need to sacrifice your truth in order to be able to move forwards. You need to stop outsourcing it and turn the mirror back on yourself and start listening to your own truth. Digging into that voice within you that's already guiding you where to go. Go deeper. And the rise will come after. I really hope you enjoyed that little riff there. As I say, I've been kind of really engrossed with this situation that's happening in the media at the moment. Not for like celebrity gossip, but more for the stories of how many people outsourced their power to this person because they thought they'd be able to he would be able to take them somewhere in their career, in this case in music. And it makes me really sad, because if those people had just realized that they were the power the whole time, I wonder where they would have gotten. I'm going to leave you with that. As always, do let me know if this landed. I don't know who needed to hear this today, but maybe somebody really needed to hear this, because I had one of those uncontrollable, I need to share that moments. DM me on Instagram if you do have any questions or any insights based on what I've just said. But otherwise, enjoy your week, everybody, and I'll see you again next Monday. Take care. Thank you so much for joining me for this episode of Maverick Mind. I hope that you've loved it, and if you have, I would appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and write a 5-star review on wherever you're listening to this podcast from. If you'd like to keep the conversation going, I invite you to join me over on Instagram at maverickmindco or on my website maverickmind.elliefoden.com. And I'll see you in another podcast very, very soon.